reading the tea leaves here, right? Because we haven't gotten a lot of information about what happened, just that it was a good meeting. But if it was a really good meeting, I think we would get some details about a potential ceasefire. We haven't heard anything to suggest there's a ceasefire. This is a very tense situation because Trump has put a deadline of this Friday for Putin to enter into ceasefire. And if he doesn't, he's going to put new sanctions and potentially new secondary tariffs on Russia and the countries that are aiding Russia by buying its oil, like India and China. And so the meeting between Witkoff and Putin was sort of a last chance to try to come up with a deal that would stave off those new sanctions. And we haven't heard anything to suggest that they made progress. And can they finalize a deal within 48 hours? I'm somewhat skeptical. Keep in mind also that yesterday, President Trump and Zelensky spoke, and apparently that was a very good meeting, and they are on the same page about the need for sanctions if there is not a ceasefire.
David, President Trump has been very vocal about his frustration and anger towards Vladimir Putin. Here's what he said earlier this week about sanctions against Russia, like you just mentioned.
Is there anything they can do to avoid sanctions at this point?
Yeah, get a deal where people stop getting killed. We're going to get that one stopped, too. Somehow we're going to get that one stopped. That's a really horrible war. This should be the easiest to stop, and it's not.
You know, but David, this is not the first time we've heard this. If there's no deal by Friday, what kind of sanctions could be put into place?
Well, what Trump has talked about is both secondary sanctions and something he calls secondary tariffs, which can have the same impact, but with a different mechanism. What he's talking about is targeting the countries, specifically India and China, as well as some other countries like Turkey that buy Russian oil, and targeting the companies that are from those countries that help Russia sell its oil, help it deliver its oil. I'm talking about the tankers and the banks, principally, that enable Russia to sell its oil. That could really critically harm Russia's economy, which is already suffering. And keep in mind, there's not a lot of room for Russia to breathe because Russia is spending 40 to 50% of its overall government budget on military hardware and supporting its army. So if it has less revenues, then it's going to be harder for it to continue that war machine.
David, I'm glad you said that. Go back to that and hit that for me again before I run out of time. Russia is struggling in this war also.
Absolutely. Russia is struggling. They're making a tiny bit of progress on the battlefield in Ukraine, gaining a little bit of territory at a time, but at enormous costs in terms of losing soldiers, in terms of losing equipment, in terms of spending money on their army. It's incredible that they're spending 40 to 50% of their budget on their army, and I just don't think they can keep it up if there's renewed sanctions on Russia, new sanctions on Russia that hurt its revenues, and if Europe and the United States continue to provide Ukraine with the weapons it needs to match Russia on the battlefield.
And David, we showed a map a few seconds ago. I want to go back to that map so that you can talk us through this because we're looking at southeastern Ukraine right there. We see what Russia has taken over and what Russia, where Russia has control right now, but they're struggling to maintain that control is what you're talking about.
Yes, and when I was in Ukraine in May, I visited a number of the cities that are right along that border of the red and white. Kharkiv, Zaporizhia, Odessa, Mykolaiv, and all of those cities are now, they're now safe. The Russian soldiers are not too near to those cities, but I'm talking 20, 30, 40 kilometers away, so close enough to be dangerous to those cities. Russia desperately wants to take those cities, especially a city like Odessa, which is Ukraine's biggest port. Right. It's how Ukraine ships grain out of Ukraine. It's how Ukraine ships in things that it needs. Russia would love to have that port, but so far it hasn't been able to get it. And Russia and Ukraine is going to fight to the end to defend these cities and defend that front line. It loses a little bit of a territory, but not enough really to appreciably benefit Russia.
David Tafuri, thank you again for joining us this morning.
Thank you.